Are you like most sales and other professionals who want to grow their wealth faster than what they are currently doing through their company 401k, even with that company match, the stock market, or just plain saving money? Would you sleep better at night if you had the financial freedom to be job optional in just 3 to 5 years through investing in real assets? Maybe you don't want to stop working, but wouldn't it be cool if you could retire a decade earlier than most and do the traveling you and your family have planned for years while you're still young and can enjoy it? Let's face it, most busy professionals don't have the time or desire to take on more work outside of their W-2 to grow their wealth. On The Wealth Flow, each week we share the stories, the investments, and take a deep dive into the various asset classes that can deliver that accelerated growth to your portfolio passively. That's right, no extra work for you. Instead, we'll put your money to work. Learn what the 95% aren't talking about and join the top 5% of earners today on The Wealth Flow.
Welcome to The Wealth Flow. My guest today is Vince Rodriguez. He is a co-founder of Anvi Invest. Anvi Invest is a business partnership that purchases investment properties to help grow the wealth of all parties involved. Coming from an analytical background, Vince leads the team in the acquisitions of new assets. And Vince, let's just jump right into your story. Appreciate you being on The Wealth Flow.
Hey, Keith, thanks for having me on the podcast, man. Always fun to talk with like-minded people like yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And I always start, Vince, really with, your background, where you grew up, what eventually led you into real estate.
Yeah, man. Let's we going to 5-year-old Vince. What's
Yeah. We can start that far.
I'm actually an immigrant from South India. So I came here when I was 22, did my master's, and got a job. I only applied for jobs in Southern California. So I came here, started working for a nanotechnology company for 5 years. That was fun, and then I moved on to do. I work for a medical device company. I still work there currently. I've been there almost 7 years now. Very good company. But what was interesting was this company is about 30 minutes from my house. So every day I would commute an hour. So I was just listening to like radio and like Katy Perry. So one day I decided to go into podcasts, and I somehow came across Rich Dad Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki. And then I was like, no. So I've been wasting my whole life. So that was like my start of my curiosity, I would say. That was 6 years ago, 5-6 years ago. And then I bought a property that first year. I bought a second property the second year. Everything went wrong. I still stuck on to it. And then, I bought most of my properties during the pandemic.
Okay. Yeah, that's fantastic. And tell me a little bit about the strategy and stuff on that first one that you bought. I know we were talking a little bit before the show, and it sounds like there was that was in Bakersfield or somewhere in the where was your first one, I guess?
Yeah.
And was it a single family?
Yeah, you're right. So that was actually Bakersfield. I'll give you all the numbers because I know it the back of my head. It was a $256,000 triplex, right? Who would think that that's a thing in California? But it was. And I had 20 grand. My buddy Drew had 20 grand. So we put it all together. I don't know, we put like 15-20% down, and then we bought this place. And it was in the hood, dude. It was bad. It was like, I did all the numbers and did all the math, and we're like, oh, this cap rate is really high. It's really good. But I forgot, well, the tenants don't want to pay. So I'm like, oh no. So they were like doing all kinds of drugs and selling. They were stealing electricity and all these things. So that took like a good 6 to 9 months for me to renovate and kick everybody out and make that property and cash flow positive. I actually, after 4 years, I actually sold that property last year for a $200,000 profit. So I sold it for $459,000. So
nice. Okay. Quite a turnaround there. That's awesome.
Yeah.
When you bought it, it sounds like there were existing tenants, but were all three leased out you purchased?
One was vacant, and then there was 2 leased out, but they were like terrible tenants. They're actually selling drugs and doing all kinds of stuff. So I was like, okay, so looks like I might have to play it dirty, So I was doing some research and I found a cool cop. I put the cop in the middle unit. They both disappeared the next day. Both the tenants. So,
Nice.
it's always good to have a cop car parked in front with the concealed or not even concealed carry. They disappeared. So
Right, right.
then I was able to fence that property in and put like reasonable tenants in there, but still the neighborhood is tough is challenging to manage. But people were still paying rent. I wasn't losing any money after that. It didn't really bring me a lot of cash flow positive, but because it's California and the property was
Mhm.
the 90s build, I was able to, the property value went up a lot. So bought it for 256, sold for 459, I think. Yeah.
And on that appreciation that you had recognized during that hold period, was there anything that forced that to the higher price? I mean, did you guys rehab each of the units, or was it just getting solid tenants in there and kind of cleaning it up a bit, is from a tenant standpoint?
Yeah, good question. We did rehab quite a bit. I mean, not like, $200,000 worth of rehab, but I would say maybe 50, 60 grand, put good amounts of
Yeah.
change, make it look nice, all new paint, put a nice flooring, fencing all three units. And so if on paper, if you do get good tenants, it was cash flowing, if people paid. So if I'm able to manage the tenants properly and put like reasonable ones, it never lost money after the first 6 to 9 months. So yeah,
Okay,
but it's
nice.
for my liking right now. I don't like those kind of properties anymore. It's just too much time. It takes too much of my time and energy to maintain that property to make $200. It's not worth my time. So I would rather buy
Yeah.
in nicer areas with a lower cap rate, but more appreciation and those kind of place. I do that now.
Okay. And so you said you bought that first one, and then a year later you bought another one. Was that other one in the same area, or tell me, I guess, a little bit about how those have gone so far?
Yeah, so that was also Bakersfield. So my portfolio at one point had, I don't know, 35, 40 doors in Bakersfield. I only have three now. I've been selling them off the last 2 years. So I only have three doors or one property left in Bakersfield. So that one was better than the other one, but it's not even a B. I would still say it's like a C minus area. The first one was definitely D. So then it was better, but it's a little bit older, so it had some issues and stuff like that. So I held on to that one for 3 years, and I sold that one too. I bought it for, I believe, 168, sold it for 240, 250, something like that. Made a couple of bucks, nothing crazy, but I was happy to get out of it. And that one had Section 8 tenants, so they never not paid, but there were some issues.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And have you done Section 8 on any of the others? And I guess I'd love to get your opinion on Section 8.
Yeah, so I did have a duplex in Stone Mountain, Georgia. My sister lives close around there. So I bought a duplex and they were both also Section 8s. I like Section 8 because you never not get rent, right? During the pandemic, they always pay. The government pays.
Mhm.
So that was good. But it's different. As long as you put a nice tenant in there, it doesn't matter, right? But the one I had in Bakersfield, not so great. So they were just messing up the property a little bit, a lot of trash in the front yard. So I'll get like citations from the city. So you just have to be on their thing a little bit like, hey guys, you got to do that, and they will do it. But it's just a little bit more managing. The one in Stone Mountain, both of them were pretty cool. They didn't have a lot of issues.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then since then, you've kind of expanded out a little bit. What other areas? I guess take us through your whole journey there at what you bought and kind of what the goals are now.
Yeah, man. So we started buying more and more in. So ONV stands for Andrew and Vince. That's what ONV is. So my buddy Andrew does most of the operations, and I kind of do like the numbers and acquisitions kind of stuff, the bigger picture, like what areas to go to. I run the economics of the deals. So I did that, and so we started off in Bakersfield, right? So we kept expanding in Bakersfield, but as I found out how to have my Canon camera stay on, it always switches off or resets. But anyway, so yeah, we started buying in Bakersfield, but as I was telling you, the properties are harder to maintain. It's a little bit more management intensive. So what I decided to do was, I don't want to keep buying there. So I started buying in Inland Empire, which is a little bit closer to, so I don't know if you know the area. It's like Riverside, Redlands, Fontana, those kind of stuff. So we started buying there. So those were a little bit better in terms of appreciation, a little bit less management. So we started buying there, and I like that. But we were still doing long-term rentals. So last year we decided, you know what, let's start selling Bakersfield. So we started selling Bakersfield and started buying in Orange County. So we have some properties in Orange County. So there we started furnishing all of them. And then we started doing midterm rentals and short-term rentals. So that's what we do now. And then today we have 3 units in Hendersonville, north of Nashville. And then we'll be closing the third property. Those are newer builds, not newer builds, actually brand new builds. They were just constructed yesterday. So we did that. So that's where our strategy is going towards more.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds good. And what's the short-term rental environment like? Are you guys managing it yourselves, or how are you getting those online? And then I just not as familiar. I know some states, some cities have really kind of cracked down on the short-term rentals and the permits and whatnot. But curious as to how those have been going for y'all.
Yeah, so there was like a big Airbnb boom. So a lot of people were starting to get on it. So you can easily make money a couple of years back. Now it's a little bit. It's a matter of time before almost most cities, unless it's like a tourist town, they're going to lock down on it. They're going to give out some permits, but they don't want to lose most of the housing to because they want renters and people to have housing, right? So they're going to regulate that. So in order to be still in the game, we do more midterm rentals. So we do 28, 30 days, 31 days, depending on the city. So we try to get traveling nurses and those kind of people. The reason we do furnished, the reason we do furnished is because we could get anywhere from 1.3, 1.4 times long-term rents to like 2 to 3x rents. So on average, I would say we would get 50% to 80% more rents per month. Yeah, it's costs a little bit more, right? Because you're paying all the bills and it's furnished. So, a little bit more maintenance and all that stuff because your appliances, everything is yours. So it's there. But in the longer run, I see that as a better hedge against the higher rates. So I'm trying to always run the math to make sure there's enough cash flow incoming. Right now, I'll be honest, we're very, very tight. We don't have a lot of excess money that can actually supply my lifestyle. So our gross is like 60 grand a month, and our burn rate just to pay the bills and pay off it's almost $54,000. So let's say 2-3 tenants don't pay, then we're negative, right? We'll lose money, $5,000-6,000 a month. Now I have a job, a very good career, and Drew has a music school. So we combined make $250,000-300,000 a year. So we're able to support this monster of a business, and we can just spend 5-6 grand, right? Every month. If we have to, we could do it forever. I could lose 5 grand for the next 100 years. I'll be fine because I'll just split it with Drew and we're just spending $2,500. But equity wise, we have a couple $1 million in there, right? So we don't feel that bad. But I don't like to keep doing that. So we have been changing. That's why we sold our Bakersfield. All of our new properties are making money. So overall, the business itself doesn't lose money, just if you account for income and expenses. But like if you add like I'm eating out dinner, and because I put it on the company bill, right? It shows up as negative. But it's really like me spending money on like this podcast. Like I have my own podcast, which costs money every month. My own meetups, which costs money. So yeah,
right. Yeah, that makes sense. What and on the long term? So I have a short term rental as well. I only have, my wife and I only have one, but it's up in the Smoky Mountains. So I don't know how far away from the place. We're real close to the Tennessee border, out in Bryson, North Carolina, Whittier, North Carolina specifically. But we get a lot of tourists, right? Like right now, there's something called the Polar Express up there, and the last 3, I was telling my wife this morning, the last 3 tenants or guests that are staying there That's what they were going there for, to take their kids on this train ride around this time of the year. So I know with us, what we're trying to do is market, more to not only our past customers that we've had over the course of this year, but look at opportunities to get people, fill in our calendar basically. What's occupancy been like to try to get the longer term tenants? And who are you connecting with in order to do that?
Yeah, so we do something called like a hybrid approach. So we try to push, we give a lot of discounts to get the longer people in, but in the middle, if there's like 2-3 days or something, we'll try to fill it in with just like short-term rental people too. So mostly we try to go for the longer term bookings, right? But sometimes there's a week there, a week here, but Airbnb will let you do that. So we'll just try to get it booked. So our occupancy, I would say, is very high. I would say it's 85-90% is always booked.
Fantastic. And is that primarily, you mentioned traveling nurses, and I hear that a lot in the short term space. In fact, for another friend of mine's got something similar that they host a lot of the nurses that are coming into town to help hospitals out. Is that primarily what the longer term stays are, or is it people from all industries?
Yeah, it's a little bit longer term. Sometimes people work remotely because a lot of our properties are nicer properties. So if you wanted to kind of rent that like regularly, it'll cost a lot of money. So it's furnished, it has like a nice amenities and stuff. So people just come and work here remotely. Like for example, Hendersonville, which is just 20 minutes north of Nashville. Actually, one of my LLCs is called Smoky Mountain Estates LLC. So,
Oh, cool.
yeah. So we do that. But yeah, so in that one in Hendersonville, we have a duplex and a single family. The duplex was rented to people who are for like 3 months each, to people who are working at Costco. So Costco is looking to build more there, so they were renting, right? So during the holidays, we tend to book a little bit with just family, not our family, but just families trying to move to Christmas and all those things. So people rent for like a week or two, So yeah, so we see that too.
Okay. Fantastic. And what led you to the Tennessee market? Tennessee is one of those states that's growing quite a bit. The taxes are still reasonable as far as property taxes go. I'm in Texas, and so that's kind of one of the higher ones as far as property taxes. But it's one thing I've enjoyed about the North Carolina property is it's paying nothing really in property taxes.
Yeah. So like I said, like I'm from California. I live here. It's very blue in California and it's very not landlord friendly. So I've had a lot of problems. I would say, since the pandemic, I have easily lost six figures in lost rents. I would say $150,000 plus, which I will never get back. Right. The only reason I'm like surviving is because it appreciates, right? But it's not a good for me to keep buying like that and doing that, because now I raise capital. I have other people. I have to pay them, like a coupon rate and stuff based on profits and stuff. So I'm just not super into buying in lower neighborhoods in blue states. It's just not something I want to do, because now, in the beginning when I was just buying in Bakersfield, Drew and I was just, I was like, couple grand, like, okay, nobody pays rent. I could pay this for the next 100 years. Like, I don't care. It's $2,000. Nobody cares. Right now,
Right.
it's over $50,000 a month. If everybody in California says, oh, we have another government shutdown, we're not going to pay rent, and California says, you don't have to pay rent for 6 months, I'll lose like almost all of my properties, right? So I don't want to be in that situation. So I started going towards researching and looking at a lot of red states. I have like a 2% ownership of a 44 unit in Lakeland, Florida. It's between Tampa and Orlando. So I've been looking at red states and how they're business friendly states, because, you kind of like train, they're like children. Tenants are like children, I told. Like you want to train them. If you keep telling them, hey, you don't have to have a job, you don't have to work hard, oh, you don't have to pay rent, it's okay, you can buy new cars on credit card and just kind of live your life. You're teaching them to have like very bad habits. And that's California, that's New York, right? It's not I don't want to be there. I want to be in states where they're like, hey, if you don't pay rent, we'll give you like some time, but you got to get out of here. Like you can't just live in my property for 6 months. I've had people squatting in my property for 9 months. That's insane. Like,
That is insane.
right.
Yeah.
So it's like the state doesn't really take care of you. In fact, one of my tenants, they didn't pay rent for a year, and the state decided to give the money to the tenant and not me for the rents to pay your landlord. Of course, they didn't pay me, right? So it's crazy. Like they don't understand how this works. So yeah,
Yeah, that is great.
so I just decide to go to places where, like I tell people, people are like, oh, there's always going to be people who California always go up. Yeah, it's true. But I always tell people money has options. Money will always go to places where it's treated well, right? If you don't treat my
For
money
sure.
well, I have a lot of options. I will just take my money. I had like, I don't know, millions of dollars of real estate in California. I mean, in Bakersfield, right? And of course, I didn't profit like millions of dollars, maybe a million, yeah. But that money is gone from California and moving to nicer areas, right? So what happens to those areas, right? You're going to have someone who's not as sophisticated. They're going to come. They're going to be a slumlord because the state's saying, "Hey, you cannot increase rent. It's rent control, and you can't collect rents. And can you fix the faucet?" They're like, "No, bro, we don't have money to fix the faucet." So the area suffers, right? You're going to get
Hmm.
crappier tenants, and people won't invest there. That just becomes like a not a good area, right? So you want to treat money well. So if you're a politician or like, I don't want to get into politics, but I'm saying you want to make something better, you want to treat it well. So then people with capital would come there and park their money. All the capital is going to red states. I'm telling you, the people are moving there. Migration is happening. You want to go to the southeast, it's going to be difficult for blue states.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I agree. And that's one of the things I look at as well when I'm buying property. So makes sense. It's difficult to have somebody that tells you basically you can't collect rent and and limits what you can collect, and
Yeah.
with the rent control. So you mentioned being having a partial share of some multifamily as well in Florida. Tell me a little bit about that. What brought that to you, and how did that deal go?
Yeah, so I've been traveling a lot and going to a lot of meetups and conferences. I'm a big believer of mentorships, and I haven't really paid anybody $50,000 to mentor me, but I do spend like VIP tickets and try to get closest to the people who are running the place as much as possible. And that's literally why I started this podcast, because I won't have an opportunity to talk to you. And
Right.
you can come on my podcast. I've talked to like some big players like, Kathy Fedke and all the Jake and Gino Barbaro. I don't know if you know him. So,
Yeah.
so I went to his conference and I met a few people there. I met his brother, and then they put me in some group, and then we started chatting for like a year. So I started doing a lot of work to see if I want to play that multifamily game. So I just spent almost a year just analyzing deals, doing all these things. And so I got into this one deal. It's a C neighborhood, but it's we locked in at like 4.25%, 4.5% interest rate, 5 years fixed, and then it adjusts. We're only in it in the second year right now, so we're good. But it's a lot of work, C neighborhoods, and it's like constantly changing. It's older assets. I think it's 80s built. So it's just not something I decided after that deal. It's not something that I want to spend a lot of time, because you get a lot of people say oh, you want to go bigger, Grant Cardone. I love Grant Cardone. You want to go bigger, faster, partner with people. I'm all about that. But I like to control things too. So I don't like to be in a GP where there's like 8 of us and, I get 2% of a $6 million deal. If I raise, for example, if you take that deal, if I raised all the money, I'll get 9% of the entire deal, right? So $6 million, I raise, I don't know, $2.5 million. I get 9% of that deal if it's not my money. Now, if I do the same deal with like how I do that right now, I keep 40% of the deal, the same $6 million. It is not even close. Like it's a joke for me at this point to do like, because I have my own brand. It's not great. I mean, it's not like nobody knows me like Grant Cardone, but people come to my meetups. I've raised hundreds of thousands of dollars in my meetups. People listen to the podcast. It's top 10%. So it's like, it's not nothing. So I'm trying to build my own people, and I want to help the people who come to my meetups and listen to my podcast. And I'm very pro about Americans owning stuff and having access to equity. And it's not Walmart and BlackRock who owns everything. And we're all just sitting here like, oh, own nothing, be happy. I hate that stuff. I'm like, no, bro, you need to own stuff. Own a store, own McDonald's. I don't care. Just have stuff. So, because if you have things and if you own things and if you know how these things work, you're not going to go do a riot and break things and do stuff because you understand how this works. So I'm all about educating people to have like a community. We all own things together. So now my portfolio is worth, I don't know, roughly $9 million. I started with $20,000. I had $20,000, but we are the majority owners. Like, my sister and I own more than half the company, so it's crazy. So we have a lot of equity. So I like to do things like that where I'm more available. Like, let's say your grandma invested money with me and Grant Cardone. Who do you think she has access to more? I'll talk to your grandma. And then, that's something I learned from talking to Neil Bawa. Because do you know Neil Bawa? He's
I do. Yeah, I do.
Yeah,
he was on my podcast.
Yeah, he's a crazy Indian guy, but he's super good with math and stuff. So I was asking him, I said, hey, why would my sister invest with me and not invest with you? You're definitely better than me and you do all these cool things you're doing. He was like, yeah, but I'm not going to have time to talk to your sister for 2 hours, but you can. So
That's right.
if you want to have a closer relationship with people and community and you want to build that, you have that opportunity. Like, he's like, I don't have that time. Like, I can't talk to my 4,000 investors every day. There's no chance, So it's like, it's very interesting. Yeah.
That is interesting. It's a great perspective, especially for, somebody who's kind of in the, myself, I'm kind of in the newer part of, trying to raise capital and do all that stuff. So, that's a great point that I'll definitely steal from you there. You have an opportunity. I've got time for you because of that. So, what about management of those short-term rentals? And again, sorry, I apologize to my audience. My voice is screwed up today because I'm a little bit sick. But anyway, so
hey, you make up for that with your looks, man. So you're all good.
Hey, all right.
So
sounds good.
You're asking about the management, how I do the management. So that's where my buddy Andrew, he does all of the operations for the company. So he kind of is the guy who does all the Airbnb and stuff. I'm kind of on it. I mess around with it. I message the guests here and there, but it's not my responsibility. I'm not going to be doing that all the time. So he has that, and we have a buddy, a British guy, Rob. Shout out to Rob. He's cool. He introduced us to his team in Tennessee. So he's kind of taking over the management of our Tennessee properties. And eventually our goal is to just pay him like a flat fee, couple grand a month or something. And then he just runs all of our short term and midterm, and he's really good at it. So as long as our cash flow improves and he can kind of help us out, we want to get rid of that kind of job because that it's taxing, constantly messaging people and, responding and stuff.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. It's one of those things you got to keep like, we're going to be heading out of town here on the 14th and out of the country and won't, to try to do that. It's not that you can't be done, but my phone's not going to work quite the same. And so having somebody that's their dedicated job is probably good. So Vince, tell me a little bit maybe about, what's the future look like? What areas are you most focused on right now? And where do you see your business going in the next, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years?
Yeah, man. So I'm very focused on improving our cash flow position because we've been running very tight for very long. It's almost 6 years. And I don't really get anything out of this other than this big empire I'm building with my friends and family, right? And I don't really get to drive like a Porsche or something, right? So I'm just still driving a freaking Toyota, right? And I have all these properties. So, I want to go a little bit more towards cash flow, right? So that's our goal. I mean, we have like loans for almost $7 million. So if I improve my interest rate by 1%, I just cash flow 70 grand a year. That's crazy, right? That's
Yeah.
the that's
Yeah.
the that's the point of leverage, of having leverage, right? Because you can renegotiate the game every month. If the Fed decides to drop the rates 2 years, all right, I make 140 grand a year now. That's all it is. I mean, I don't have to do anything. Or if they don't, the rate increases, it's fine. All of my interest rates are 30-year fixed. Like I don't care, right? So we have
Yeah.
that, right? So I'm working on that. And I have a couple of properties that I'm not super thrilled about. They're older builds, uh, 40s, and the other one is 80s, I think. So we're going to liquidate that, probably pick up maybe 300 grand in cash. And then I'm going more towards the red states, right? So it'll be Florida. I'm not too pumped because of the insurance, but
Right.
my family is settled in Georgia. So they live north of Atlanta. So that area, my family's been there for 20 plus years. So we understand that area. So I might do some stuff there, but also Tennessee too. So that's the future. My dad's back home in India. We don't have a lot in India, but we can sell everything, probably make like $1 million. So I'm looking to reinvest that. My dad's 71. So I want to give him some cash flow. So he likes to travel. So I want him to go to Europe or Israel or wherever he wants to go. So that's something that I'm focused on. So the next 6 months to a year, I'll be very focused on deploying my family funds to some cash flowing assets, and it's like well protected.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. Well,
Yeah.
do you get a chance to go back to India from time to time to visit your dad?
No, my dad, my family, my mom, dad, they live both in India and Georgia. So they have green cards. So they just
Oh,
they
okay, good.
just live
Yeah.
wherever they want, basically. So I go. My mom's in Georgia right now, so I'm flying in a couple of weeks for Christmas. We spend Christmas together. So we'll be there. My dad's back home. He just left a couple of months back to sell off some of the properties because they don't. We have a small hotel and some land and a single family. The land, the two parcels of land and single family, they don't make any money. They haven't made any money for the last 100 years. It's just sitting there, right? But it's worth like $500,000. So I've told them like you need to get rid of this crap so we can actually bring the money here and actually invest it and actually make some cash flow on it. That's another thing a lot of people don't understand is like world economy and how currency works. They just think I find that very amusing with Americans, especially. They're like, "Oh, this is really bad. Inflation's really high. It's the worst place on earth." I'm like, "Have you traveled at all?" And they're like, "Oh no, I've been to Mexico." I'm like, "Yeah, you're a moron. Like you don't even understand how this works." I'll give you a quick example. Is we bought some property in a land in India about 20 years ago, right? It's gone up a lot, right? Um, but when we bought the property, the Indian rupee to the dollar was about 40 rupees to $1. Right now it's 85. So when you sell that
Wow.
property
Yeah.
in India and you bring that money back, you just cut your profit by 100%. It's gone, right? So if you keep investing in different markets and if you tie to the dollar and against the dollar, it's always losing value. Means if you invest anywhere else and if you try to bring it back to the US, you're going to be losing that, right? So you're going to be taking a huge hit. So, these are things like you have to think of. Like you can't just be like, oh, the US dollar is losing value. Yeah, compared to what? What is not losing value? Do you know any
Yeah.
currency that has not lost value? Yeah, there's literally zero currencies in the world. This is the one that's losing the least amount of value. If you're going to park your stocks and bonds and stuff in a asset that's backed by the U.S. military or whatever you want to call it, right? This is probably the safest bet, I would say. Till we have the
Yeah.
currency.
Yeah, that's a good point for sure. And yeah, especially if you have assets like your family does, somewhere where it continues that it'll outpace the inflation that we're seeing here. If you don't make that move now, I mean, now's a good time to do it. But
Yeah.
yeah, and we experienced that actually when we went to Argentina last August, and it was incredible to see how much it was almost difficult to carry around the cash that you needed
Yeah.
because it wasn't worth that much. So I had a belt with like all these,
Yeah, trillions of
dollars
dollars or
on it.
whatever. Yeah.
Oh, it's ridiculous. I ended up, not exchanging in, as much. But when I first got there, I exchanged, a couple grand, and I was like, oh, where am I gonna carry all this?
Yeah.
So it was
Yeah,
kind of
it's
incredible.
very interesting to see, and that's and talking about other countries, and India is not a country that's like, oh, it's doing really bad, so the rate is India is like fifth largest economy in the world, and it's supposed to be two in like 20 years or something, like number two or number three. So it's going to be
Yeah.
U.S., China, and India, right? And that's already like still like not great for right now. Maybe 30 years later, I mean, you might want to buy real estate in India, like it might be
Right.
a top dog. But right now, it's still the US. So you wanna make your money here, collect dollars in pay, and then you go to other countries and spend it. Then you're living a really good life.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And so, I guess outside of buying these additional properties in Atlanta, are you going to still continue just focusing on primarily single families that you can do short term, long term rental, or what strategies are you looking at?
Yeah, right now I'm still not super sold on going more than four. 1 to 4 is single family, right? As you know, so I'm still on that path of very newer builds. I don't want to buy anything older because I'm like
Hmm.
so jaded on like doing so much work and all that stuff. So I want to buy. And I also see that the newer builds get rented out faster. It gets better reviews. People like it. And, so it's a better hedge against the future. If you buy something which was built literally yesterday, I know the one I just bought, it's going to be withstand weather and all that stuff better. Like, it's just better. So I'm looking at that. I am not against looking into hotels as well. So I might be down for like a boutique hotel, something like that, might furnish and then, rent out by the room or like a still going after that modern guest who might want to be like, hey, I'm working remote. My company lets me do that. I want to go live in a cool place for 6 months. I don't mind paying 40% more rent. Like, I would do that. Like, this house is worth like $1.3 million, and you can live here in one of my things in the back for like $100 a day. That's ridiculous. Like, where can you get that kind of stuff, right? Because I'm able to pass on the savings to the guests because I locked a 30-year fixed at 399 2 years ago, and everybody told me
Yeah.
don't do it, right? So I'm able to pass on that savings to the guests, and I can compete like that, right? So those are the ways because we can play a game much longer if you can think for more than a year ahead. I mean, this is like there's no way you can fail. Like, it's a great strategy.
Yeah, it is a great strategy, and you're right. It's neat that if as long as you stay under the 4 units, you can lock it in at that fixed rate. You're not having to refinance it every 5 to 7 years like a
Mhm.
commercial loan. So there's a lot of nice options that you have from that standpoint. And you said your family has a hotel in India, right? So you've got some experience. Did you have any experience with it, or was it something your dad bought after
No, so
you've
my
moved
my
here?
my sister bought the land and they built like a hotel there. It's not like a huge Ritz Carlton, right? I think I'll tell you what it is. It's paid off in cash, so there's no debt on it. And then there's a property management company who runs the whole thing for us in India, so they are the managers. I believe we get a net cash of like close to $1,500 a month, something like that, which is good. But that's what it is. But there's nothing, there's no debt, there's nothing on it after paying all the taxes and stuff. So I'll restart again. You can talk still.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, yeah, no, that's great. Yeah, I've thought about the hotels as well. I do a lot of traveling for work, and that's always been something that's interested me. And those you can actually, I didn't realize this until I had a guest on my podcast that has gotten his hotels through like an SBA loan. So kind of similar to the 30-year. There's a still it's about the same type of paperwork that you got to do for that, but you have an ability to purchase it and put it on some long-term financing with very little down. So
Yeah, you can do 10% down. I believe they have 25-year AMs and stuff like that. It's a little bit annoying to get the deals done because of it's basically Fannie Freddie, right? So it's got a lot of guidelines. But hey, that's a great way to get into the game. You don't need a lot of money, and you can have a target on the other side and like, a hotel on this side. As long as you occupy 51% of the square footage, they'll give you the loan to buy the target too. So you can lease it out to target. So it's very interesting. The other thing which I utilize as well is the tax benefits, right? So I do cost segregation studies, and I do get a huge tax write-off accelerated the first year, 80% this year, 60% next year. And you can use it against your W-2 because it's considered active
Right.
income. So it's a lot of different things, So I always tell people, go hang out with people like Keith or Kathy or Grant Cardone. You just hang out with better people. Like you'll move faster in life. You want to just ask for advice from your friend who has, point 0.1 Bitcoin, and he's been talking about Bitcoin for the last 100 years. Okay, well, you're not going to go anywhere in life.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah. So, and you'd mentioned some of the conferences and different things. Which ones have you been to that you really would recommend to the audience?
The best one overall, experience wise, if you want a little bit more fun too, it'll be Bigger Pockets. They have a really fun one. So I went to the last year's one in San Diego because that's drivable for me. And I know Paul Yorber, I don't know if you know him from Fixated Real Estate, and Ken McElroy. They have this event called Limitless, and I actually volunteer with Paul's team. So I get access to all the guests, and it's free for me. I just volunteer, and I help set up and, run around to get the, when they do the auctions, for the vets and stuff. I like that kind of stuff. So I do that. So I would say Limitless is really good. I think they only do one a year. It's the best. And if you're a little bit nerdy and you want to talk to the guy who was in the Fed, literally, if you want to talk to the big dogs, everybody shows up there, and that's a really good event to network and market. The networking connections going, because you want to get it into rooms where you normally won't. You either pay for it or you kind of like just have a podcast like you. You could talk to Neil Bawa. Like, you won't be able to talk to Neil Bawa if you just didn't have this. That's
Right.
crazy. That guy's like a billionaire, right? So that's the game.
Right.
So they see, like, I was asking Neil, and like, you didn't have to come on my podcast. I'm a loser. Like, he's like, yeah, but I know you're trying to help people trying to buy their next home. So he thinks of it as like, he's donating his time to like actually help people. Like, that's, how cool is that? Like, and I can pick his brain. That's crazy.
It is. That's very cool. Yeah, I'm a firm believer in getting in the room with folks, and like you said, the podcast has been a surprise for me in the sense that that's really given me some of that same access. And everybody, I know you probably are experiencing this in this industry as well. Everybody's so willing to help, and if you have a question about something, that's why you get in that same room, because they may have already experienced it. They may have already gone through some of the challenges that you've gone through, and can give you a guidance and kind of a helping hand.
Yeah, man. What do you think, Ben? Let me turn it on you. What do you think of the next year? Like, do you what is your plans? Are you going to be watching it, or are you going to sit back, or are you going to still be playing to win?
No, I'm still going to be playing to win. As far as what's going to happen, obviously I don't have a crystal ball, but I don't know that rent rates are going to move all that much. I do feel like, by Q4 of next year, I think they're going to come down some. I think we're close to the top, but who knows for sure. But there was a guy that came on my podcast, and I've used this several times, but he talks about not timing the market. Instead, it's time in the market. And I believe that. I think, I look at my own investing career, and, I've bought at times where, wasn't always the best. I probably, bought when I paid a little bit too much in the beginning for certain things. But it's that time in the market that gives you the appreciation that, kind of allows you the ability to overcome some of those things. So yeah, I'm looking at continuing to shift gears forward and make good stuff happen here over the next several years.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. Yeah, I learn a lot from. I'm very interested in mortgage rates and stuff. I've been following it a lot. I don't know if you know, but the spread between the 10-year Treasury and the mortgage rates is it's about 300 bips or 3 points. It's historically 1.5 to 2. So just if the market thinks the Feds are not going to increase rates and if they're going to decrease it next year, I expect that spread to come down to the 200. Right, just doing that,
Yeah.
you're going to have the rates fall from like 7 to like 5.99 or 6. Just nothing
Yeah.
else happens. So I expect the rates to go down next year, and I have a couple, not a lot, but a couple in the sevens. I would love to refinance those, and they start cash flowing. So I'm excited.
Yeah. Yeah. Now I'm with you on that. My short term rental's at 7, and that was painful to do. I had to do a buy down to get it to 7, so it was just crazy. Uh,
I
but
just locked a
you know,
30-year fix last week for 1.7 and 7.49. That is ridiculous.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
it's a sign of the times. I'll tell you what, though, when I started in real estate, rates were close to 8, and so we haven't quite gotten there yet. And
Yeah.
obviously, if you look at the 80s and stuff, I mean,
Yeah.
they've been historically much higher than what they are, but it's a shocker when it goes up that as quick as it did. Just it went up astronomically quick this go round. How can people find out more about you, Vince, if they want to invest with you, if they want to see what you and Andrew are doing? What's the best way for them to reach you?
Yeah, you can. Instagram would be good. It's ANVI, which is Andrew and Vince. ANVI Invest. That's our Instagram. You can also listen to our podcast. It's RE Social Podcast. And if you're in Orange County, we have monthly meetups in Costa Mesa, in California. So everything is free. So you can just come hang out, meet us, and hang out with us.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's awesome. And then I've got two more questions for you if you have just another minute or so.
Yeah, man.
Um, Two questions I ask every guest, and that number one is if you were to give some advice to somebody who's maybe just starting out in their investment journey, what would that advice be?
I would say in this current economic conditions and stuff, I would tell that person to constantly go out to meetups and read books and educate themselves, go to networking events and talk to people who are doing something, not some guru online who's talking about it but has nothing. Like, I get so pissed off and I see all these Instagram, like they have like 100,000 followers and they're like, and I go to their bio, they have one single family rental. And I'm like, what is happening right now? So it's like, make sure who you listen to. So go to people who are doing deals, hang out with them, and then be comfortable with it, and then try to get into the game somehow. The question people always ask me is, which is the wrong question, is like, is this a good time to invest? That's never the good question. That's a terrible question. The question is, how can I invest in this market? That's always the question, right? Because if you
Yeah, for
ask
sure.
when it's a good time to invest, it's never a good time to invest. Never. Like, it's always something's wrong, right? Otherwise, everybody will
For
invest and
sure.
everybody will be millionaires. Like, it doesn't. There's always something going on. So yeah,
That's for sure.
yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that's great advice. And then another question I ask everybody is really for the audience, but for myself as well. Any book recommendations? Anything you've read? It doesn't necessarily have to be real estate related, but just something that's been impactful for you.
Yeah, I'm a big reader. I do a lot of audiobooks. I would say just one book.
You can throw a couple of them out there. Yeah,
Okay. I like that one that Never Split the Difference. I think it was Chris Voss. I think
it
he
was.
was
Yeah.
he was a negotiator guy for I think when Americans got kidnapped overseas, he would negotiate with the guy who kidnapped people. And that guy is a genius. I learned a lot of stuff from him from that book that helped me negotiate deals. So you never want to make the deal feel one-sided. So then we make the other person feel a little bad. So I always like to give something, when you're negotiating. So example, let's say if you're negotiating with me and you say, hey, can you get, you're listing it for 450. Can you give me 10,000 credit? I'll be like, okay, I'll give you 5,000 credit, but you got to close 1 week faster. So you train them to kind of know, like, you can't just keep asking stuff. If you ask something, there's going to be something that's going to happen, right? So
Yeah.
things like that I learned from that guy. And obviously, if you haven't read Rich Dad Poor Dad, I'm like, what are you even doing in life? It's crazy. Read that
That's
book,
right.
but definitely read his follow-up book, which is better than the first book, which is Cash Flow Quadrant.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. All right. Well, we got three book recommendations out of you. So
Yeah.
awesome stuff. Well, Vince, I've enjoyed our time together on the show and really appreciate you coming on the Wealth Flow.
Thanks, Keith. I'll see you soon. If you come to Orange County, stop by.
Absolutely, will do.
Being that you're still here, I trust you found value in this episode. I personally wish I would have known these guests and strategies when I started my wealth creation journey. Go to wealthflow.capital to subscribe to our newsletter. And as a free gift, we will send you our quarterly market report and the top 10 things to look for in an investment opportunity. Take a minute to give our show a rating and review. Help us reach 1 million professionals by subscribing and sharing this episode with someone you know who could also find value in it.